Hey everybody, how you doing? Good evening. It is Monday night, June the 7th. I'm sorry if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan. As a Sixers fan, I may be joining you tomorrow, but hopefully not. But the big story of the day from the Bills is about training camp and the fact that it won't be in Rochester for a second consecutive year. Now, to clear up a couple things, number one, I saw a couple people on Twitter, not many, but a couple, who insinuated that this was actually the Bills kind of pulling a little fast one and getting out of their contract to be at Fisher, and COVID is the excuse. And I would say that's not true. I think this is a legit concern and a legit problem that would cause the Bills to want to be somewhere else for training camp this year. Keep in mind, it took most of the last summer to figure out how to make the Bills facility in Orchard Park COVID safe. So to just roll that out into Fisher, with a whole different facility, it's no easy undertaking. Remember, Sean McDermott a couple weeks ago called it a, quote, heavy lift. And, I think what Brandon Beane talked about today, he shed a little more light on it, which is basically that while Fisher's a superb facility, an elite D3 facility, you don't have an NFL team training there if it's not that. It's still not quite what the Bills have in Orchard Park in terms of space and everything else. And it seemed like the space was the big problem. Beane talked about you've got locker rooms need to be spaced out, meeting rooms, lunch facilities, all that stuff. And there were some things that the Bills would have had to have done virtually at Fisher that they can do in person in Orchard Park. So it just wasn't enough space there. So this is not the Bills doing an end run on their Fisher contract for this year to just get out of it using COVID as the excuse. COVID is a legit deal that the NFL or the Bills and every other NFL team has to deal with, and that's why they are not going to be at Fisher again this year. Now, the question is, do they ever come back to Fisher? Number one, the most recent 5-year contract the Bills signed to be at Fisher expires after this season. And what I've been told is that there will be no extensions. There was no extension granted last year, and although I've not been told officially there will be no extension granted this year, the strong assumption is that there will be no extensions, period. So in other words, the Bills' contract with Fisher to hold camp in Rochester is done. And Bills camp for 2022 is essentially a free agent. It can go anywhere. Literally anywhere in the country it wants to go. So would they come back to Fisher? Well, I've been told that there are talks ongoing, or have been happening at least, between Fisher and the Bills about renewing their partnership. Now, there are a lot of places the Bills theoretically could go. Southern Ontario, Toronto, Hamilton maybe, assuming the border ever does open, and I'm sure it will. Erie, Pennsylvania is another relatively popular Bills market. Syracuse is a possibility. Certainly they would have the facilities ready to go with a Division I school in Syracuse football. And even I would say Penn State would be on the table considering the Pegula's connections to that university. And again, we're talking about another D1 school. Don't let the Bills have to just go somewhere that's in Western or Southern or upstate New York. There are teams like the Saints do their training camp in West Virginia. So it's not out of the realm a team goes as far away as Penn State to make it happen. What I think will happen, though, is I don't think the Bills are going to pull something out of the box, pull something from left field for their next training camp site. Because it's not as simple as just find me a big locker room and a couple of football fields and we can have a training camp practice. There's a lot of things the Bills have put into Fisher over the years. The training facility, the dining hall, all that stuff is exactly how the Bills want it. There are electronics. There are video hookups that connect throughout the Fisher campus to allow coaches in one room to feed video to another. I'm told scouts who are outside the building can tap into a meeting through video hookups that are already at Fisher. Now, obviously, the Bills could set this all up somewhere else, but it's no easy or small or, more importantly, inexpensive undertaking. That's going to be a deal to set up another school exactly the same way as Fisher. And, there's an argument here to be made that if you're the Bills, team on the rise, they might be past that level now. Team, near the top of the league wanting to stay there. Why would you want to put a giant obstacle or, something new or, zag when the road has been zigging for the last few years and force the Bills to learn and get used to a new training camp site? Why bother sending them to Penn State when they already know where to go at Fisher? Everybody knows where the dining hall is, where the locker room is, where the film room is. So although I think it's possible, the Bills could look at another region and, think to themselves, we might be able to, promote our team, our brand to another group of fans. I think end of the day, considering where the Bills are at, I don't think if they're going to go away to camp, I think it's going to be Fisher and that's it. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But, I think the likely scenario is that it's either Fisher or Buffalo. And obviously Buffalo is a strong contender because all the things I just talked about with familiarity with the situation, with the video setup, the electronics, all those things are better in Buffalo. That's where the team spends more of its time. Obviously, it's a more recently constructed facility. It is state of the art, and the Bills have been very, very good, at staying healthy for whatever that's worth with that facility. So I think probably the 2022 camp comes down to Buffalo or Fisher. Here's the thing. Even though there was that rumor when Sean McDermott first was hired, and it really has never gone away, that this regime does not want to go away to camp, every time they get asked about it, they talk about how much they like going away to camp. And, Sean McDermott, throughout his coaching career, from the moment he was an intern, grabbing Andy Reid coffee with the Eagles, all the way up through this job with the Bills, every single year, he's gone away to camp. Remember, there are very few creatures of habit like NFL coaches. These are the old dogs that you can never teach new tricks to. So the idea that McDermott suddenly doesn't want to go away to camp never quite jibed with me. This is the guy who's always going away to camp. Why does he now want to go all of a sudden? Yeah, I mean, you never know. Things change. People learn. Whatever. I get it. But it would make more sense and be more logical to me that McDermott does not want to do anything but continue to go away to camp. And since the Fisher setup was already there, I think that's where the Bills are probably going to be in 2022. I could be wrong. And like I said, there's enough options on the table, but you start eliminating things that I wouldn't want to do if I were the head coach of the Bills, and the idea of going to whatever college you can find in Erie, going back to Fredonia, going to Toronto, none of those options to me seem as palatable for a team that's, really humming right now as going back to the place so I would say my prediction for next year is Fisher 1, Buffalo 2, and then the field. And then we'll see. But 1 and 2 are incredibly close, and either one could be the case. What do you guys got here? John Allen, the Bills are a legit Super Bowl contender. They can't mess with what works. Yeah. And Bills can't say John Fisher has worked. That's kind of what I'm saying. Why break it? Why fix it? It ain't broken. That kind of thing. I think the Bills have proven they know what they're doing at Fisher. Keep it going. Corey, what do you got here? North of the border of Penn State. I'll tell you what, if it's not, let's say it's choice 3 and it's the field, Penn State sounds like the one to me. Because the Bills have already tried to market themselves to Toronto. They've already tried to play the Toronto game. Not that it hasn't worked, but, Penn State would be brand new territory. Obviously, there's a Pagula connection there. So if you're going to make me take the field, and plus the other thing too, the Pagulas already put money into Penn State. I think it's probably easier for them to augment the facilities if they wanted to. Obviously, of all the choices we're talking about, Penn State would very likely be the one that's most ready to go. So if we're going the field, I think Penn State's the call. Anita Lynn, there are some people in Rochester that just don't care. I get it. I'm not, look, and I'll tell you what, 3 years ago, I was probably someone that, would have been offended if the Bills pulled camp from Rochester. And I think part of this is because COVID has taken camp away, and you really can't get mad at that because we all understood last year. And I think most of us understand this year what the deal is. So if the Bills pulled camp from Rochester next year, what is there to be upset about? There hasn't been a camp here for 3 years anyway. What is Rochester losing? So at this point, I don't think if I'm a Rochester Bills fan, I'm all that upset about it. I think there'll be some frustration. Keep in mind, there are a lot of people, and Anita, there are a lot of people who don't have the money to go see a Bills game, even a preseason game. So the chance to go to camp is the only way that they can see this team up close. And if you put the camp in Canada, that makes it a whole different deal to go. Even Penn State's the same thing. So, there are people who care. I think there are a lot of people who would not prefer it, but upset or angry, I don't know if that's the case. Corey, the Jets go to Fisher. That would be fascinating. That would be a fascinating deal. And the Jets would get some fans. I mean, New York teams pull. You know who would do really well, Corey, at Fisher would be the Giants. Giants are very popular in this town. But the Jets have enough fans to where that might be worth their while. The Jets, by the way, also have a really new facility in Florham Park. So I'd be surprised. They did the little experiment with Cortland when Rex Ryan was there. I'd be a little surprised if the Jets came to Fisher. But it's a fascinating thought. Hey, Corey, congratulations on the draft pick there. That's awesome, man. Good for you. All right, guys. Hey, good questions, Anita. That's a fair point, and I appreciate everybody checking in. I know it's the off season, kind of slow. Camp stories in early June. That's what we got. Almost there, everybody. The nice thing about June is that the next month on the calendar is training camp. So we're getting there. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I'll catch you later.